Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome back to the Property and Investor Podcast. I am your host, Paul, as you know, and my inner lawyer needs to say before we get started, nothing in the podcast, health advice, legal advice, financial advice, any of that stuff. Um, it's just a really good conversation with a very interesting guest, as always. Joe, a very warm welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Paul. Good to see you, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for coming. Lovely to see you. You're a busy man, Joe. You're a busy man. So I was almost surprised we managed to get this locked in because you are one of the busiest people I know.
We got there in the end, though, didn't we? I'm really looking forward to just sharing what we've done and what the plans are for the next few years. So yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on.
Right, let's get into it.
Uh,
Obviously I've known you for a few years and known you online, but I've also known you in real life. You know, went on a retreat earlier this year together. Um, and one of the great surprises was we were sitting in the kitchen and suddenly there were these beautiful Spanish voices behind me, and you were in like full flow with a really good friend of mine speaking Spanish. And it was like, I had no idea that Joe speaks Spanish. So we'll get into that later.
yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
give us the origin story to kick us off with. So, where are
Yeah,
you from? Like, how do we get here?
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name's Joe Taylor, but my full name, I'll tell you this, is Joseph Javier Atahualpa Jackson Taylor. Now, Atahualpa was like one of the last emperor Incas in South America. So I'm from South America, from Ecuador, which is in South America. So my mum's South American, my dad's English. My dad was an accountant in the UK. He got flown out to South America where he met my mum. My mum was a receptionist at the company there. Essentially, he was sleeping with the receptionist, brought her back to England, gave her the green card, and that's how I was born. So that's the short version of it. So yeah, live in West Yorkshire, live in Murfield, lived here all my
Mhm.
life, and yeah, speak fluent Spanish. Not many people know I'm Spanish with a name like Joe Taylor until I
Mhm.
tell them the full thing. And yeah, that's kind of where the journey began. I'm 26 years old, and yeah, I'm love what I do essentially.
Awesome. So, like remember like your arrival in the property space,
Mm.
because an overnight success, in a decade in the making, because that's always the way, isn't it? Like everything,
Yeah,
everybody who's an overnight success, there's all that work they've done on the ground. But you kind of hit the ground running and became, I would say, fairly instantly known as like the go-to person if you wanted to develop a social media profile.
yeah.
So how did that come about?
You know what? It's funny you say that. So I started the business in April of 2020, so in the first lockdown.
Hmm.
And for the first, I would say, year, I had no audience, no one watched my podcast, no one watched my videos. I was just slowly just chipping away. I'll
Hmm.
remember that I got a Facebook Live to do in a group, and all I had to do was introduce who I was, what my name was, and what I did. It took
Hmm.
me about 10 attempts to say my first name. I was that nervous, I was stumbling, and I thought, look, there's two options here. I can
Hmm.
either disappear into existence or build my personal brand, just document what I was doing. And to be honest, I didn't have a plan. I just thought, let me start posting, let me see what's going to happen. And then I got my
Hmm.
first property client. This was in the summer as we came out of lockdown in
Hmm.
2020. He paid me my first £300 a month. I was absolutely
Hmm.
buzzing. My first ever sale. We got some really good results for him. And then we got another client and got invited to do a podcast, then to go into a webinar. And that's where it spiraled. So yeah, for a good 6 to 12 months, I had no audience. I wasn't being invited on stages. It was then suddenly, when you're in one community, another community invites you,
Hmm.
and then the snowball effect happens, and that's essentially what happened really. But I
Hmm.
used to work for a marketing company down in Birmingham,
Okay.
a company called the Entrepreneur Circle. Worked there for 2 years. I was
Hmm.
doing their copywriting and their Instagram. And I've always thought I've been quite creative because I started my first business. I'm going for a tangent here, but I started my first business when I was 14. And I always liked marketing, social media, posting. It was always kind of my bag.
Hmm.
Numbers and spreadsheets and all that stuff I absolutely hate it. So I'm the complete opposite from that. I'm definitely more of a red and a yellow than a blue.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where the journey started really. So started working for an agency. COVID hit, and then I thought, look, I've got two options here. I didn't go to university. I can either spend lockdown learning the business model, so
Hmm.
learning how to start an agency, because this was like a whole new world,
Hmm.
or get a job as a key worker, maybe in a factory, and then, wait until lockdown comes up, finishes,
Mhm.
and then get into a job and get into a career. So I decided to go with, building a social media marketing company, essentially.
Yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Rest is history, my
Um,
man. Rest is
wh-
history.
so, what did you learn when you were working at the entrepreneurial circle? What did you take
Yeah.
from
So the big things was, I would say, so like the art of like capturing attention. This is super important. This is what I always preach to my clients is attention in today's world is the new currency.
Yeah.
Like if you're not capturing attention, you're invisible. You're not going to be able to sell your products and services
Hmm.
organically. I mean, so one thing they taught me really was how to capture attention and how to retain that attention. That is also super important because you can
Hmm.
hook people in, but if you don't retain them, so if you're not adding value, or if you're not getting to your point, or if the structure of your video doesn't resonate with your audience,
Hmm.
they're going to go and you're going to lose that potential customer, that sale, that opportunity, that
Hmm.
retreat guest, in your instance. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the biggest marketing pillar that they taught me. How to get attention, how to retain, and how to get people to do the next thing that you want them to do. So that's what we like to call a call to action. So
Mhm.
whether that be to book a call, whether that be to download your lead magnet, whether that be to purchase, your product or your service, that whole journey from stranger to customer is a
Mhm.
big thing they ingrained in me. So that's essentially what I preach to my clients these days, and that's what we do for our clients on a day-to-day basis, I suppose.
And do you think what do you like? My perception is that people's attention spans have become much shorter over time,
Yeah.
and I wonder if it is like like a post-COVID world that we live in. Would you do you see that in the work that you do with your clients?
100%, 100%. So I'll give you an example. Like, whereas before you could have a little bit more time to hook, now you've got a split second. You've got
Right.
1 second, 2 second maximum to hook someone's attention. If not, they're gone. So if
Hmm.
you're not getting into your point in the first second, so again, I've seen people that spend 15 seconds just introducing themselves. Hi, it's Paul Lanfear here. The property investor developer, and then by the time you've said that,
Yeah.
the person's gone. So
Hmm.
you need to get straight into your content, straight into the point that you're making, and then take them through that journey and then get them and tell them what you want them to do next. Now, if you're doing an introduction video, that's different. But if you're
Hmm.
introducing every single video with
Hmm.
you spending 10, 15 seconds just explaining what everyone already knows,
Yeah.
your retention and your hook rate is going to be it's going to be down. It's as simple as that, really.
And during this period of time where you were kind of like doing the work and not necessarily getting the feedback from the marketplace and not kind of getting the results in,
Yeah.
I mean, that is an experience that everybody listening to this podcast will be able to relate to.
Yeah.
Um, what kept you going? Like, how did you persevere through
You
that
know, you
process?
know what it is, Paul. There was no other option, so I deferred a place at university. So I was going to go do international business. So
Okay.
like one of my first dreams was to work for like. So I love to travel, as you know, and one of my goals was to work at the Hilton Hotel, like a big international hotel chain. Start a corporate career. So
Hmm.
anyway, that didn't happen. So I thought I literally have two options here. I can either go all in this marketing business and learn it and get clients and build revenue, or, I'm gonna have to start somewhere, as I said, like being a key worker and then
Hmm.
eventually moving into a career. But obviously, as you know, the marketplace then wasn't, we're all cooped in our houses, weren't we? So there wasn't
Hmm.
massive amounts of options. So I just thought, look, I'm living at home, I've got no expenses, let me just lock in. And you can ask mom and dad, I was spending about 4 or 5 hours a day just meticulously studying this course by a guy called Jordan Platten, who I owe a lot of gratitude to for helping me get to where I am today.
Interesting. I mean, there's a lot to be said for locking in. We're going to talk about this kind of later on because I think it's
Yeah,
probably going to be the like working title of my business plan for next year. Because I don't necessarily want to get to this yet, but I think I noticed that like the population as a whole, there's quite a lot of distraction. And I often look at things and think if we could just concentrate on one thing for a defined period of time, like you did with that course, Like
Yeah.
we're going to get the results out of it. The challenge is just the distribution of our focus goes everywhere. But let's get onto that in a moment. I just want to come back to personal brand. So I think there has definitely been this transition, hasn't there, in the last decade, probably longer realistically, from big corporate brands, which people identified with the brand, through the transition not from, Virgin to Branson, Tesla to Elon. Um, Talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
talk about personal brand.
Sure. So, what is personal brand? It's the perception of you when you're not in the room. Now, as exactly as you said, Paul, we live in a economy where there's two kinds of people. You've got content creators.
Hmm.
They're the ones who make the money. They're the ones who build an audience and capture attention. YouTubers, TikTokers, I'd call myself a content creator because I have an audience and I monetize the audience.
Hmm.
Again, it can be on different levels. And then you've got content consumers, which is the vast majority of the world, people who don't make content, who sit there, consume, and purchase.
Hmm.
So now we live in a world, of course, there are exceptions. So, for example, if you've got a product-based business like my e-commerce business, people don't care that I'm the owner. People don't even know I'm the owner. So
Hmm.
it's very much on the brand. Okay, that's the brand is important. But if you're
Hmm.
in a service-based business and you work with clients, you work with, for example, for us, we work with other business owners. People do not care about my website. Yes, sure, they might to an extent, but well and truly what they care about is what is here. What is the
Hmm.
knowledge in my mind? They're paying for information, they're paying for secrets, they're paying for experience and knowledge that I have
Hmm.
that they can gain if they work with me. But realistically, well and truly, and if you're in property, again, because most of my audience is property, people don't care about your logo. If I'm going to invest 100K into you, Paul, your example. The reason I came to your retreat is because we get on.
Hmm.
We've got the same morals. We like to travel. We've got a lot in common.
Hmm.
I don't even know what your company's called. Quite frankly, I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm buying it. I'm buying into you, and this is the mistake a lot of property people make is that they spend 10 hours designing a logo. They spend, 5 hours doing a website that, is going to get no traffic when
Yeah,
well and truly they need to be talking about them and their journey and what they are doing.
yeah.
Because ultimately that is what people are buying into. So that's what I mean by personal brand. The way we buy, the way we build trust isn't with logos, isn't with brochures. It's with people and it's with, people like yourself, people like myself,
Yeah,
content creators, Alex Hormozy, Gary Vaynerchuk. These are
yeah,
big marketing gods, in this industry, and they sell out masterminds, they sell out programs, and the people that attend them are going for them to be around their proximity because of the knowledge and the information that they're doing because they're selling knowledge and information, right? And that's something that people need to get over is yeah, don't worry. You don't need a 100-page website or a
hmm
meticulously created logo. Just pick up your phone, start showing your face, start telling people this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. Start being consistent with that, and you'll get the results.
I love it. Do you know what? People don't care about your logo might be the name of this podcast because that absolutely kind of nails it, doesn't it? And you do,
Yeah,
and one of the themes of the retreat we did together was like self-compassion is like be compassionate and talk to yourself kindly. So I don't say this in an unkind way, but it's easy to fixate on things, isn't it? It's like I've got to get, the logo right. I've got to have this slick website. Whereas, what's the truth? Like, I suppose I'm only speaking for myself, but like, I don't care what car you drive, and I don't care what your office looks like. It's so what is the value that we can have together as an
sure,
experience?
sure.
That's always the thing. Although I have to say, you have got a very nice car,
Thank you. Thank you.
which rolled up at the retreat. Awesome. Okay, so kind of like developing those points, I want to get onto your ecosystem because you've had this really significant shift this year, which I think there'll be a lot of value in kind of exploring. But there were a couple of, I've started really reflecting on this year and a couple of things that I've really reflected upon in relation to you with two really fascinating posts. So I might dip into those now, which is
Yeah,
one
let's do
was,
it.
um, you put this post and I apologize, I'm not going to quote you
Yeah,
accurately,
yeah.
but essentially the message was, what is it? with people being flaky this year, not returning calls, being late for meetings, not doing things on time. And then I saw your post and it did resonate with me. And then what also made me reread it was I saw a lot of my friends commenting on it, who I respect and people I respect and admire, saying, "I'm so with you with on just Joe. Like, what is going on this year? Like, why won't people move the needle?" So unpack that for us. Why did you post it, and what did you learn from it, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So I'll explain it from a market perspective on why I think this is wrong as well, because I always like to look at things from a customer journey perspective. So this week I needed a massage therapist for my calves because I've been doing a lot of running recently, so I'm a little bit.
Hmm.
So the problem I had in my mind was I need to find a solution. So what did I do? I jumped on Google, jumped on social media, found four companies. Okay. Four companies called four companies. None of them returned my call. None of them messaged me. No acknowledgement that I was a lead that could have, that was paying them potentially money for that
Hmm.
service. Okay. Then only one out of the four called me back. Okay. They spoke to me, they ran me through information, they sent me on the website, they sent me some brochures. So instantly, from a customer journey perspective, she's identified I've got a problem. She's provided a solution. She apologized for not getting back and she gave a reason because she was on a job with another client.
Hmm.
So instantly my expectations were brought down. And then she provided me with a quote and a solution and she got the business. But what I found is that people, I don't know what it is, it's just like simple things like turning up on time, responding to customers. And this is the post that I did yesterday. It's never your customer's job to follow up with you.
Hmm.
It's your job to follow up with the customer. If the customer's chasing you, trying to give you money,
Hmm.
your whole mindset around how lead generation works, it's completely distorted and you're not going to be able to scale your business. Okay.
Hmm.
And this is what I'm seeing with, again, other service-based businesses. But that was just a quick example of what I had yesterday. I
Yeah.
was a lead. I had a problem. I would have given money. I'd have been a customer, but they just three out of the four just didn't have either the systems, the appetite or the know-how to get back to a potential lead. And that's the quickest way to lose business because the first one, if they were the first one to call me back straight away,
Hmm.
chances are they'd have got the business. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just what I'm seeing across the marketplace, to be honest.
That's interesting. And what do you have like any theories as to why that might be, why you're seeing that in the marketplace?
I don't know, but I think we were saying this in the retreat. We live in such a tumultuous world at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, and I know from my generation, right? I don't know, obviously with the older generation, but I know from me, for example, like for me to call up someone randomly, I feel that's weird. So what I have to do every time is I have to text someone first
Hmm.
before I go straight to the call, which might seem like I'm just adding an extra barrier in, but I'll always do that. But what I see is people, even my age, don't return calls, can't be bothered. I feel like there's a nonchalant attitude to people's time nowadays. Where versus in my dad's time, I mean, this is what my dad used to say to me, if you've got a meeting at 10, if you turn up at 10, that's late. You turn
Yeah, yeah,
up 10 to 10, that's early, and then
yeah.
you go into the meeting. And I just think these old school methods and kind of morals, I think are distorted in today's society, and I can speak a lot on today's society and what I think of it, but that's just my perception looking in. So if you can turn up on time, if you can add value, if you can say you're going to do what you say you're going to do, I
Hmm.
think you're instantly ahead a lot of the marketplace because a lot of people just they just don't follow through on what they say they're going to do. It's as simple as that.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. I know somebody who's like a clinical psychologist, so I asked him about this a few weeks or months ago. Um, and he said, "Oh, I think this." I was interested. I suppose I posed the question to him as, "Do you think this is a post-COVID thing?" And he answered it. Therefore, I think responding to that positioning of the question, and he said, "Well, yeah, maybe." He said, So one thing he said is we don't know. yet really actually what damage is done to the human brain by COVID, for example. So in theory, um, the parts of the brain that could relate to attention and those kind of things, in theory, there could be something that's going on there. And he also, because he's a very kind human being, he pointed out that everybody's lockdowns were very different. So it's very different to a family who have a detached house with a massive garden and the whole family locked down together and they're reasonably affluent and they've got online jobs.
Yeah,
In which case, there was one version of reality. Whereas if you were perhaps in a flat on your own in a city centre, and your job was very uncertain for a long period of time, which was true for many people, then arguably that is undoubtedly like a traumatic experience. So he was saying you also don't know how many people are walking around who have been traumatized by the
yeah,
experience, even if that's not your experience, Paul, like maybe that's other people's experience. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was
yeah.
interesting.
No, I think for me anyway, I feel like the pre-COVID world, like even like the music, I just feel like there's something off. I don't know what it is, but
Hmm.
and you can see people, and I think and I speak about the energy in the UK and how I see the UK, and I just see a lot of people that like even give an example, right? So I spoke at my old school. This was about a year and a half ago, and
Hmm.
these were post-COVID students, right? So they'd been through the lockdown,
Hmm.
and I was the youngest speaker on the day, and I could tell I was one of the most engaging because it was like a careers day, right?
Sure.
Um, and I asked the teachers, and there was my old teachers, and I said, "Were we this quiet? Were we like this when I was their age?" And they said, "No, it's completely different. Like they don't hold conver I'm not saying everyone, but in
Hmm.
a room of 30, I would say there was like three or four that were confident, asked questions, were genuinely curious. I think there was another percentage that just looked zoned out completely.
Right.
And I said to the teachers, is this normal? Like, have you seen this from when? Because I left it in 2016, 17. And I said,
Hmm.
what differences do you see? And they said it's two things, COVID and the smartphone, like the
Interesting.
way it's reframed our brain. And I could just see like a lot of empty souls, and it was quite sad to see, really.
That is
Um,
very sad to see.
but I think I'll be honest, I think that's a sign of the times that we're living in.
It challenges something that I've been talking about a lot recently, which is that, AI and technology offer us like the best opportunities on the face of the planet. You think about healthcare, you think what that might be, and I'm fascinated by that area. But it obviously also brings challenges, doesn't it? Technology and the way we're going. And I like linking back to what you were talking about on personal brand, I think like the skill which is in most desire is just really good communication skills and really good human skills to
Yeah,
be, you know, like a decent human being who can communicate well, who can listen, who can try and serve, be of service, because that is ultimately what I think life is about.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, that makes sense. And another um interesting post you did that captured my thoughts and obviously got a lot of engagement was this your question about would you ever consider living in the UK? And I
Yeah,
I sense below that question are which you've kind of begun to allude to already that you've got a perspective on the way things are.
yeah,
So talk about like what was the reason for that post? Because obviously like absolutely boatloads of engagement and
yeah.
I suppose you're speaking to an audience as well, and that audience, I was unsurprised by the responses of that audience because you
Yeah.
were talking to an audience, weren't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, of course.
So
So what's
talk,
my views on that then? So I've always found it quite so I've got friends in Dubai, Australia, I've got friends everywhere, like people
Mhm,
that started in business in digital businesses at the same time as me. Now, the way I see it is this, I think the UK, the way we're going, I think the UK as a country and as a countryside is beautiful. Like
mhm,
the lakes, the sea, the mountains. I love the country of the UK. What I
mhm,
don't like and what I'm scared is going to get worse is the society that we live in. the
hmm
state of the UK, the politics, the
hmm
it's not even just the tax, it's not even just labor, it's the whole system. I just don't feel empowers business owners. Like I don't feel empowered here
hmm
to employ people anymore in the UK. Hence why I've got overseas people now. It's
hmm
cheaper, it's better, and that's jobs that have lost, to potential people here in Leeds. So
hmm
that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, look, I'm 26.
hmm
Just before I know it, I'll be 30. I'll be going to the next chapter of my life, which is kids and a family.
hmm
So for me, I want to have that few years of traveling and, backpacking because last, 5, 6 years, I've traveled, right? But I've been mainly locked in this business and,
hmm
building my other business. And obviously we could talk about the e-commerce later, and doing that. And I feel like I've not missed out, but I want to be like a 20-year-old again. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
I want to have that experience of, backpacking and
hmm
doing a bit of fun stuff. So I potentially see myself leaving the UK. Is it forever? Probably not, because my family's here and my family's massive thing for me. My mum and dad are here, my niece, my sister. So I wouldn't leave forever, but I think for a chapter, I need to go off and
hmm
potentially, raise the wings, I suppose, or however you say it.
Yeah. I mean that. I mean, obviously that makes sense, and for a lot of people that is a kind of rite of passage. They kind of part these shores, and some of them never come back. Like I've got
Yeah.
fat family and friends who have gone to like more warmer climates, and they've chosen never to come back. I suppose if I could, I feel like I have to offer balance. I do. Don't know what the right way of approaching this is. It's like if all the good people leave, what
Yeah.
is left? And what I mean by that, and I don't they tend not to be like antagonistic, but it's like one way of like preserving cultural things that you respect and admire and wish to continue is that you kind of stand up for them and you kind of preserve
Yeah.
them, and you're kind of like part of the solution. I
Yeah.
suppose I have this like discomfort about the current exodus of the like there is stuff worth fighting for. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
I think the people and the culture and the space of the UK is such an amazing. I mean, I've traveled all around the world, and every time I come home, it's like, oh, it's great to be home. I like the people. Like, I absolutely adore the people. I think we've got just like the humor,
Yeah.
the kindness that, like, your average UK human being is kind, often very funny,
Yeah.
will often help you out of a random situation, but which they don't need to help you out of. So I think there's a lot there. And as you touched upon, there's so much beauty. Like we have
Oh yeah.
mountains, oceans. I'm kind of in love.
I'm jealous of whenever I see a post of yours and you can see the sea and the sunrise and it's cold. I'm jealous, man. But that's it's just beautiful. It's beautiful to see.
And maybe that informs the way that I feel about it, like the kind of that I am still in love, but
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, for sure.
I think the experience that we have looking at our screens is very different to when you're in real life. I suppose I'd also say it's like a footnote is, I know people I've over my life I've met people who literally live in paradise, and
Yeah.
it's very possible to be unhappy in paradise.
Yeah, yeah, no, of course. But
You
you
know,
know it is, and this is something I've learned. It's not about what you've got; it's about who you're with.
definitely.
Like you could live in the Maldives, which is paradise on earth. But if you're
Yeah.
lonely there and you don't have any relationships, you're not gonna be happy.
And purpose and mission, and
Purpose,
that's
yeah.
a big thing. Like I think we've got a crisis of purpose, and I
Totally agree.
one of the things that we could all benefit from is just reconnecting. Like, what is the meaning of this? What is the purpose of this? Like, what mission are we on together? Kind of thing. Cool.
Totally agree. I think a man without purpose, man and woman, but
hmm
I think men, especially young men, I think young white men seem to be quite the area that's been left behind, if that makes sense. Obviously, I know
hmm
there's obviously other areas as well, but from the studies and the things that I've read, a man without purpose, as you say, is a lost man. Like we all need a reason to get up in the morning. I'll give you an example. So I saw a few of my old friends from high school. So we kind of naturally just drifted away. So I found
Yeah.
a new group of people that are in business that are, kind of we're on the same path and we serve each other. I
Hmm.
saw the old friends who I went to school with, and I asked one of the guys, I don't know if swearing's allowed on this podcast, but I
Yeah, yeah.
just want to tell you what he said. I said, we was just catching up, he was just asking me what I was doing. And I said to him, I said, "Oh, what are you doing these days?" And his answer was sniffing and shagging.
Oh God.
Uh, I thought, fucking hell, sounds like a good laugh. No, I'm joking. But I was like, that's, that's after 6, 7, 8 years of me not seeing you and that's what you're doing. Look, who am I to judge what you're doing? You can do what you want.
Hmm.
But that for me is a sign of the times. If you don't have purpose in life
Hmm.
and you're not going anywhere, you don't have a mission that you're trying to achieve, then you resort to stuff like that,
Hmm.
which is why there's a lot of, I think, a lot of mental health issues in the UK as well. And I think
Hmm.
my men in particular, we struggle to speak about that.
Hmm.
But I think if you got the basics right, you did your 10,000 steps a day,
Hmm.
you got sunlight, you ate well, you had
Hmm.
friends, you had purpose, you had hobbies, you had, you were investing your money. I think a lot of these mental health problems will be eradicated. I'm not saying all of them, but I
Hmm.
think if you got the basics right, the basics to a good human life,
Hmm.
I would see a lot more people thriving personally.
I totally agree with that. I often, I think, you talk about it as the basics. I talk about it as the fundamentals. Just focus on the fundamentals
Yeah.
consistently. Like
Yeah.
that is where all the magic happens. Like there isn't the secret pill that suddenly makes everything work. It's that holistic view of like looking at all the core areas of life and just focusing on those fundamental things, fair, as consistently as possible. And obviously there's highs and lows.
Sure.
Um, that kind of prompts another question before we bring come on to the here and now, which I'm keen to get to. I often ask people about a life lesson, what they've learned in life, and it can be highs and lows, but give us a life lesson. Tell us one thing that you've
Yeah. So I'll never ever forget this. So back in 2017,
learned.
um, I was on summer holidays and I was about 16, 17 at the time. I needed some money, right? So I thought, right, let me get a job. So I got a job at a local pub near me,
Yeah.
and I was the kitchen porter there. And
Hmm.
I absolutely couldn't fucking stand the job. I'll never forget. It was about, 25 degrees this from the summer holidays,
Yeah.
massive mountains of plates here, and they always put me on until finish. So what does
Hmm.
that mean? If you're on there till finish, you're not leaving that kitchen until the kitchen is absolutely spotless. So the guy before, he could come in and leave his plates,
Yeah.
and he could just go. But I was there, and I had to be there until the kitchen was spotless. So I did this job, did this for 6 weeks, and then the chef who was my boss, he promised me that I'd be moving over to like being a sous chef, which is obviously where you make not the main dishes but the small dishes.
Hmm.
I was really excited. But each shift was a drag, and I was just getting pissed off. And I was like, "This isn't for me." And my boss, so the chef, pulled me to one side. I think he was called Mike, and he said this one thing, and it's always stayed with me ever since he said this. And he sat me down and said, "Look, whatever you're doing, you need to be the best at it. Whether you're a bin man, whether you're watching, you're washing kitchen plates, whatever you're doing, be the best that you can be at it, because then you're gonna go far. So be the best bin man, be the
Hmm.
best guitarist, be the best surfer, be the best footballer. Just
Hmm.
be the best and do your best at whatever you're doing,
Hmm.
and that will set you apart from most people. Because most people, they rock up, they do the bare minimum,
Hmm.
and then they clock off and they go home. But if you be the best at it, that's where opportunities then start to follow. And he said to me, and then when he said that, and he was like, "Be the best kitchen porter that you can be for the time that you're here." Because
Hmm.
it's not just doing the kitchen porter, but it's the discipline, it's the attitude, it's the perseverance and the confidence you get from yourself knowing that you've stuck out and done the task. So
Hmm.
that was one thing, and I'll never ever forget that. Be the best.
That that is a great life lesson, Joe. And
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of one of my favorite books, which is called The Four Agreements. And one of the four agreements is always do your best.
Yeah.
And one of the nicest things in that book is that it says, and your best is different every day. So it's just a case of like waking up, doing your best. And even if like objectively you could look at it and go like "Pff, that wasn't quite what I was hoping for. If you've genuinely tried your best, um, without getting too woo-woo too early in the podcast, like I do think the universe hears as well. I think it responds to effort. I think if you show up every day, you're reasonably consistent, I think the world begins to form around you in a positive way. But maybe not.
1,000,000%. I agree with that totally.
So do your best. That is awesome.
It's
So
quite simple. It's not revolutionary, advice, but it's true.
again, it's the fundamentals, isn't it?
Fundamentals.
So tell us a little bit about your ecosystem because you've been on a bit of a journey for the last year or so.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what it's in terms of the businesses and the stuff
Yeah.
we're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
So the main business is obviously eGrowth Media. Now we are doing our first retreat. So I've invested quite a lot into my self-education, in my
Mhm.
public speaker training, in retreats, in courses. I'm a big advocate in investing in yourself.
Mhm.
And then I was on actually Paul Tinker's retreat. Big shout out to Paul, a great guy,
Mhm.
helped me a lot.
Mhm.
And this was October of last year, I think it was, yeah, 2024. Um, and we set our goals or intentions for the year. And he said, Why don't you do a retreat? And then instantly I had the limiting beliefs in my mind thinking, I can never sell a 5 grand retreat,
Mhm.
That's crazy. Like, who's gonna come to my retreat? I'm not even in profit myself. And all these
Mhm.
limiting beliefs started to happen. So then, anyway, I put together the brief. I sat down. We've been planning this retreat for about 18 months now. And I thought, okay, look, I'm good in one area, which is marketing and personal branding, but I
Mhm.
need other people for other areas. So I've got a sales and NLP practitioner coming on stage and off stage sales. I've got obviously Paul Tinker, who's done
Mhm.
a lot in construction and developments and investing in precious metals. And then I've got Alfie Best, the gypsy billionaire, coming in to fly in and do a one-to-one. So I brought in a power team of people to
Mhm.
to make this experience even better for my clients. And then yeah, long story short, as of today, we've sold 9 out of 10 places. So we've
Nice.
got one more spot to sell, and then we are sold out. And that's my first ever retreat, and that's going to be in Marbella next year. So yeah, that's kind of been my big thing. Over the last 2 years, we also did events across the UK. So which you kindly spoke to at was it the Birmingham event you spoke at?
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah.
So we've done events in London, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, and Glasgow. That was from 2022, no, 2023 to 2024 over
Mhm.
that year and a half. So yeah, that was incredible. Like just the whole process of that. But I've stepped away from that now, and then also got another business with my business partner Mo Jogi,
Mhm.
which we completed on in August. I think it was just a few days before the retreat, actually,
Mhm.
before I came to see you. And essentially, company's called She Vitality. So we sell beauty products for women, which I know is very, very different to what I'm doing now. But we're selling anti-cellular massagers, face masks, and we're going to be released. We want to turn it into like a woman's holistic health brand.
Mhm.
Eventually, the plan to scale it. So it's already doing pretty well. Scale it further, bring on influencers, and then eventually exit that business. That's definitely a business that we're looking to exit in a few years, build the value up, build the customer base up. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, currently selling in about 150 countries, yeah, across the world. So it's good. And I'm planning to go to China next year as well to meet our suppliers. So it's been an interesting learning curve. It's not been easy. I mean, I can talk about that later on or now or whatever. But yeah, a lot of learnings, let's say.
Well, let's click through that then. So
Yeah.
give us some of those learnings, like where have the
Yeah,
challenges?
absolutely. So one thing, so this was kind of my first, because I've been in marketing all my life. It's a very simple business. You have a client,
Mhm.
you charge them every single month, and you deliver on the service, right? And you send them an invoice, and that's that. Very, very
Mhm.
simple. E-commerce is just something that slapped me in the face. Like it is a ridiculously fast-paced business. It's a
Mhm.
high cash flow business, but it's also very, very fast-paced, very intense because you're spending money on advertising every single day. So, for
Mhm.
example, right on the website, so this was in beginning of September, we had PayPal. So because we changed from the previous owner to our new business, the PayPal got disabled on the website. So when people were trying to purchase on the website, it said PayPal there, but none of the sales were going through. So we looked at the data, so we were thinking, shit, we're spending, 1,000, 2,000 a day on ads, and we're thinking, why are we not getting the conversion rate had just dropped off a cliff. And
Hmm.
because we were new to it, we were like, what is going on? What's the problem? Like, and we were trying all these things. And then we found out that we all we had to do was submit our business information. It was a 10-minute job, but for
Oh,
six
no.
weeks, we were breaking even. Some days we were losing money. Some days we were making money, but overall we were 75% down on sales on the previous 2 weeks, which was just incredible. So for 6 weeks, we've just been rattling our heads. And again, that is one of the learnings that is very fast paced. You know, every single week there's someone trying to copy our store. Like we had a guy literally copy our store, like literally duplicating it. So like using our pictures, we've had to get copyright taken down, get a trademark registered in the UK. So it's all these things that oof, has hit you massively. So I've learned a
Mm.
lot. It's humbled me a lot. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and but yeah, I'm excited for to see where that's going to go. It's definitely my next challenge is this business.
Well, that leads us on nicely to, I suppose, like where next? So what's your direction of travel? And um, also, like, what are you optimizing for? And what I mean by that is like, what is important in this next chapter for you?
Yeah. Well, for the next 12 months, let's say.
Yeah.
So I guess for Shoe Vitality, if we could be sat here next year, I want to have a fulfillment center here in the UK. So, because at the moment it comes directly from our supplier to the customer. So I
Hmm.
want to hold stock in the UK, have some sort of fulfillment center in the US as well. So one in the UK, one in the US, because they're the two
Hmm.
biggest markets that we operate in. I'd love to. One thing I'm working on next year myself personally is optimizing my health and my fitness. That is
Hmm.
something that I always put second or third in the priority, but I know this year I need to do it. And it's not just for looking good, it's for feeling good as well. Um, Also, I've got a 10K booked in for February as well next year. So I'm training towards that. So I went on a run this morning. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's all about optimizing me, building up the business, doing my retreat, carry on with e-growth. And yeah, next year I just want to have a bit of fun and travel quite a lot. So that's the plan for next year.
I mean, my experience of you is that you've made some really good progress on the health front.
Yeah.
You got well stuck into the yoga and, all the
Yeah, yeah.
stuff that we did on the retreat. You really seem to thrive in that environment. You seem to love the paddleboarding and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So there's obviously stuff you're already
Yeah,
locking
yeah.
in terms of your health. So,
Yeah.
so if somebody was thinking about, two or three things they could do that you think will move the needle health-wise,
Yeah.
where would you point them towards?
So for me anyway, this is what I've done. So I've got a coach who I work with. So I work with on a one-to-one basis, not
Hmm.
just at the sessions, but I've got an online coach. So I chat to him every single day. I send him all my food. I have that accountability because ultimately I think I might be doing well, but as I said to you before, I'm a big believer in having good people around you. So I pay him every single month and
Hmm.
he coaches me one to one, essentially online and offline.
Hmm.
So that was the first thing. Is a coach for everyone? Probably not. But I think if you're new to it, if you're new to nutrition, if you're new to how to, because what it is you shouldn't go on a diet the way I see it.
Hmm.
It's a lifestyle shift. So for example, today, every single day without fail, 10,000 steps is a minimum. On top of that, it'll either be a cardio session or run session. Now, I'm clearly not a PT. I'm not trying to preach that, but what's worked for me is 10,000 steps a day, maybe 2 or 3 cardio sessions a week, whether that be a paddle, run, stairmaster, swim, um,
Hmm.
and then just managing my calories as well. That's the big one because they say that abs are made in the kitchen, aren't they?
Yeah, totally.
That's what they say, and that's been a big weakness because I love. I think me and you have been for a stay before, aren't we? I,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love going out for stay. I love going out for dinner. It's a social thing, isn't it? So yeah, that's something I'm just having to nail down a little bit to drop somewhere.
And I think my experience of most people is like nutrition is where the work is the hardest, and that's where the attention is needed. Um, uh, so that's really good. Very positive, very helpful. They were great. Um, and then a book. Like, tell us a book that has kind of changed your outlook on the world.
Yeah. So I've not read a lot in the last year, if I'm honest, but one book that I started on my business journey, which I'm sure you probably know and a lot of people know, is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Hmm.
So that was where it all started for me because
Hmm.
the way you view the world and the way you view money is it just opens your eyes how the middle class and the working class they trade time for money,
Yeah.
but you never make wealth that way. So once you see that and once you know about building assets, so for example, I've got crypto and silver. They're two investments that I've got. I
Hmm.
know I've got that as a safety barrier. Property is one of something I want to get to in the future, like yourself.
Hmm.
And I know because that's going to make me money while I'm asleep. I'm not trading my time for money.
Hmm.
So for me, that was the biggest eye opener. How the wealthy get wealthy, how they stay wealthy, and how the rest of us, working until, retiring at 70, dying at 85. For me, that's not a life. I don't
Hmm.
want to wait till I'm retired to enjoy life. I think that's just the biggest shame ever. And the way you do that is by building a business, building cash flow, building assets, and then you can have the freedom to go surfing at 11 a.m. in Scarborough whenever you want.
Exactly. That's a great recommendation. Unsurprising, it comes up fairly frequently on the pods,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
and I think it because it does, as you say, give people an insight into if you, particularly if you're not necessarily been brought up from day one with in an entrepreneurial family where obviously the business is being passed down. If
Yeah,
you're on a bit of a voyage of discovery for yourself, it's the first time a lot of people encounter the difference between an employee, a freelancer, a business owner, an investor, and how you might want to fit into that kind of ecosystem of different roles. Great. We'll put that in the show notes. Interestingly, I'm hosting a game or the cash flow game, which is derived from the book. Have you ever played that game?
I've not played the game. I've seen the game in the book, but I've never actually played it.
It's a bit of a proof of concept. We'll see how it goes, but I've never played it, so I'll be fascinated to see how the board game works. We'll see.
Nice, nice.
Um, So, as we bring things to a bit of a conclusion, obviously, I want to point people in your direction, and hope, and you're an easy man to find, so that won't be hard. That won't be hard. But we had the pleasure of having the retreat together. Thank you very much for coming again. Thank you very much for throwing yourself at it, and just like being an awesome part of the retreat. Um, so, I suppose if somebody was thinking about coming on that retreat next year, the adventure retreat, what would you say to them?
Yeah, it's in today's world, I think I said this to you, I was craving for something like that.
Hmm.
Like a retreat, you go to these business events and they're good and you learn a lot, but it's all about you and your business. What this retreat is amazing for is reconnecting with you as the individual. I think I remember, every single morning, waking up in the morning, going to do my steps, and just being at one with nature. Like the house that you choose, the location is unbelievable, and the lake is fantastic. The people are amazing. Like the group wasn't too big where it's overwhelming,
Hmm.
but it was big enough where, I met some really good people, and still got them connections. And I'm sure if I'd see them again, we'd have a good laugh
Hmm.
and it's very welcoming because usually in these rooms, I'm usually one of the youngest,
Hmm.
but this room was amazing. Like just the amount of people that just let me in, they were friendly, and I never felt out of place. I just felt welcomed. Because I think the only person I knew was you and Katie, and
Yeah,
that was the only two people in the whole retreat that I knew. But then by the end of the few days, I felt like I'd known everyone since forever. So yeah, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. 100% recommend it.
I love it. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And obviously, I'm really thrilled that that was your experience as well.
Yeah.
So, Joe, where can we send these good people if they want to learn more about what you're doing, what eGrowth is doing, follow
Yeah,
your journey with the new business?
absolutely. Just very, very simple, really. Find me on Instagram, which is at eGrowth Media Ltd,
Hmm.
or find me on Facebook, which is just Joe Taylor. Yeah, they're the main two platforms to find me, really.
Amazing. Right. I shall put that and the link to Rich Dad Poor Dad in the show notes as always. Joe, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Property and Investor Podcast. Please, if you've enjoyed the podcast, and I sincerely hope you have, please do like, subscribe, comment on the podcast. It makes a particular difference on YouTube, but all of the platforms would be fantastic. And we've got another guest coming next week. So thank you very much for listening. Look after yourselves, and we'll speak very soon. Take care.